Back to Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Nothing but truth.
On AFR Talk.
That band rocks me out. Some of you have requested where that music comes from. At a certain time, I'll release and divulge that information. Until then, they will be like Bon Jovi's fill-in guitarist. 15% of you got that. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk. And now we move to the big sale. Okay? President Obama admitted something in the speech the other day regarding the economy. Roll it.
You know, it's interesting in the run-up to this speech, a lot of reporters say that, well, you know, Mr. President, these are all good ideas, but some of them you've said before, some of them sound great, but you can't get those through Congress. Republicans won't agree with you. And I say, look, the fact is there are Republicans in Congress right now who privately agree with me on a lot of the ideas I'll be proposing. I know because they've said so. But they worry they'll face swift political retaliation for cooperating with them.
I love that. The press, good ideas. I mean, they understand that when 88% to 95% of an industry votes for you, yeah, they've got an agenda too. They agree with you. Of course they agree with you. And, you could just get it through Congress if we just get conservatives to walk away from their principles and ignore what you've been doing for the last 5 years. But remember, it's never about the record. It's not what you've done. It's not about accountability. Charles Krauthammer made that point last night on Special Report. Roll it.
What's surprising is why he wants the rhetorical pivot. He's got a lousy economy. He's been in office for a term and half a year. And all he can say is, well, in all that time, I've cleared a bit of rubble. It's not exactly a ringing endorsement of what he's achieved. He's got 1% growth. He's got chronically high unemployment. He's got part-time employment rising, full-time employment falling. And now he's saying, give me another endorsement. And when he says that the deficits are plummeting, from the historic high he gave us in deficits, his lower deficit now is higher than the highest ever in the Bush years. It isn't exactly a record I think he ought to be running on again, as he thinks he's running again.
He thinks he's running again. What have I said? I've said it for a long time, and that's not Crane Durham saying I said it. It's fairly obvious. Nonetheless, I was saying it back when he was running. Look at the record. Look what he believes. I think many people said that. What does he believe? What does he believe when it comes to abortion? What does he believe when it comes to health care? What does he believe when it comes to economic growth? Because when you apply the things that sound nice, how government can be the great easer of pain, and then you see the reality of it, it doesn't work. And then you talk about deficit reduction, but you don't talk about $5 trillion added to the debt and overall what we're going to see with unfunded liabilities through the entitlements. How are you going to do that? How do you address 2024 bankruptcy for Medicare? Out of dough. How do you address Social Security shortfalls? Demographically, you can't change that. You've got to change the program. How do you do it? Here's your record. Oh, Obamacare. It's wonderful. That's what you're going to be told. Sign up. Be a part of it. Looking for you, all the young. Get involved. We need your dough. Incidentally, I'm going to waive the employer mandate just for a year because, it's just not ready to go into effect, and there's an election, and, it's causing job loss. What about the $10 billion you need? Oh, don't worry. The CBO, it's just printing money. I mean, you really think they're going to go back and say, we really got to pay for it? They're really stressing out like you? Like I would? When it comes to a bill that I can't rip and pay? Do you think they're sitting around the old kitchen table and going, how are we going to do this? We just bought this. How are we going to do this? I don't want anybody to really do that. But when you find out that you have more month than money and you need to fulfill your responsibilities, what happens? What happens when unexpectedly something doesn't come in? Gee, don't rip and tell me about your, we're going to budget right. You're so out of control that you have the audacity to spend $5 trillion plus dollars, get a $16 trillion in the hole, and add to it, mind you, from $9 trillion. So that'd be $7 trillion by the way, overall. Spend it, promise, fail, and then you come back and you say, you know what? I think what we need to do. Well, where have you been? You've been there. You've been doing it. Stop. But it is about a perpetual campaign. President spoke to infrastructure spending being a good stimulus for the economy, jobs, and that's what we need. In Florida yesterday, roll it.
If you want to create jobs right now, but also jobs that will have impacts for years, here's the way to do it. We know strong infrastructure is a key ingredient to a thriving economy. That's how the United States became the best place in the world to do business. Unfortunately, over the past 2 years, too many folks in Washington have been cutting these investments. The world can't wait for Congress to get its act together.
Are you telling me we're not spending enough? I'm looking at a chart here just from up to 2011, okay? And this is published by the Wall Street Journal, and we're seeing an increase in funding. I should have my spectacles here, but I will do my best, all right? Here we go. Corps of Engineers, amount of increase in the last 10-plus years, 130% in their budget. Energy Department, 174%. Natural Resources and Environment, 88%. Science and Research, 125%. Transportation, 76%. All capital spending, 132%. All non-defense capital spending, 99%. Really? We're not spending enough? Look at how those jobs are done. And there's a lot of research on this. Veronique Desrougier over at the Mercatus Center has outlined this in a couple papers about 2 years ago, talking about stimulus spending and not only that, just infrastructure and what it yields. And oftentimes what you do is you do it the most inefficient way, paying the highest rate, and they are nearly 44% of the time they go cost overrun, time overrun. So it's not a good process for the government to be doing that. Oh, creating jobs. Yes, you can. You can take tax dollars, which you have to tax from the productive, or borrow. We have to pay. But that money, remember, they don't create wealth. They create money, but they don't create wealth. And you can give somebody a job and say, people are working. That's great. And if you believe in that system, then rather than have shovel ready, rather than even think about bulldozers, have everybody go out there with a spoon. And you'll have to hire more people. Pardon me, that's asinine. And that's how clear it is. Look at how wages are determined through Davis-Bacon. We've got more. So how is he able to say these things and do these things? Well, perhaps it's a lack of accountability. Perhaps when the mainstream media is asked about holding people accountable or even political parties accountable, they just lie by omission. Listen to this exchange between Chuck Todd and David Gregory from Meet the Press. Roll it.
Chuck Todd, who let Detroit down? Which politicians let him down?
I think it's there was poor governance in Detroit for a very long time. This turned into a machine political town. If you followed, in my 25 years of following politics, it was a city, and I remember the first reform movement of Detroit when Dennis Archer got elected mayor, when they replacing the Coleman Young era. It was that first attempt, and there was a lot of cities that did that. You saw a whole movement. It was here in Washington, D.C., the first post-Marion Barry mayor, and you saw these attempts. But one mayor couldn't change things because you had 30 years of cronyism.
Well, you had 51 years of Democratic control. Scott Whitlock over at newsbusters.org got this, and it was just outstanding, pointing out the fact that 62% graduation rate. But they have a powerful teachers union unwilling to change. There's some key ingredients here. Unions. Yes, Democrats. It's reality. And the power structure of the machine that's created. You're never solving the problem, always more money. Remember, Ed Schultz said earlier this week, we know how to write checks. We sure know how to do that. After Dyson said that it was racist, and that's why there was racism in Detroit. That's why it failed, and now they're asking for a bailout. I know. I mean, the old you didn't think that was going to happen? Remember, bring home the bacon? Listen to the program. We covered this stuff way back. But bottom line, here's the deal. When we are evaluating the success, they don't even mention the Ripon Party. How are you going to get people to hold others accountable? And then CNN. Here's another example of not telling the truth. Remember, there was the claim that George Zimmerman, in the George Zimmerman trial, that he used a racial slur to describe Trayvon Martin. Remember that? Roll it.
Oh, the idea that race played a role in the case, yes, it played a role in the case. He's on tape saying automatically it got racial. And did it play a role in the jury? It definitely played a role in the jury.
Yeah, he said blanking cold, and they said it was something else, which was a racial slur. And then Nancy Grace continued with that, and then this person has done that most recently, not corrected. You don't tell the truth. How do you do it? You don't tell the truth. And when you have the media doing that, when you have the media withholding information, hello, Benghazi, hello, 60 Minutes, hello, Steve Kroft, get chummy with them. Get chummy with them, Steve. Do your ripping job. How do you look at yourself? How do you look at yourself? 4 dead Americans, and you're withholding an interview in which you have the president directly asked a question about calling it terrorism. He won't do it, and then he goes on and says, I did it. Candy Crawley picked up and infected the debate. This is not sour grapes, by the way. Some of you get that. It's about calling out what is happening and why we're in the mess we're in. I've got the solution on the flip side. Trust me, this is nothing but truth. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk.